Hey guys, NJ here. So back with the Guitarpick. Really chuffed to see that in basically a day, all of batch one sold out. Really, just super stoked about that. Both Bloods and I are over the moon. Bloods did actually manage to get a second order in, which should arrive before Chinese New Year. So we just managed to sneak in there and get another set ordered. So there is now pre-orders live for batch two for those of you that want to reserve your place. So that's all good news. Now, in terms of the build of this, we're going to do a build today, but this one is going to be an HD version. We're going to be using this baby turtle. So this is the Caddx whoop size board and nano camera. So we're going to get that in. This is definitely going to be the most challenging build. This standard build, this one's got a Diamond VTX with DVR in it. And it's obviously much more lower profile because it's got the Betaflight all-in-one 25 amp in there and then Diamond VTX underneath, so everything sits nice and low profile on this build. This HD version is going to have that third stack in, so it's going to be a little bit taller. It's going to be a little bit more of a challenging build and more time consuming than this one. This is a very quick build to do. So what we're going to do is crack on with that. Now, the first thing to look at here, we've got the frame, got the 4 screws through. I think these are the 20mm. You get 2 sets of screws in the kit, a longer and a shorter set, depending on how you're going to build. I'm going to use the longer set because, as I said, we're building things a little bit higher. Now, I have decided to blue theme it just like my other one, but when you get your kit, you'll get the standard. You'll get, well, you can choose what colours you want, but the kit that I had here sent over was in white. But I'm going to go with blue, so I've reprinted a blue Canopy and TPU base. One thing to mention is they're made; these are made a little bit longer so that you can actually cut these down and make spacers out of them, much as I have here. That keeps the theme nice, and they just work so well as spacers using TPU. So that's why these are oversized. So there we go. That's that. What I've done, I've cut this down. And I've left the front one here slightly longer, and the reason for that is the VTX I'm going to use again is a Diamond VTX. This is the non-DVR one because we're using an HD little baby whoop in there, baby Caddx. So this is going to, the way I mounted it in the last one that's working great, and the way I'm going to mount it in this one is to mount this first in the stack and upside down, which is going to look like this. And the longer, I've left this, I've cut this, so the longer one, if I get that level, you can see that the one at the front is longer, so it brings whatever I mount next level with the board, because obviously it's only a half stack. So that's why I've done that. The other reason I like to mount this, or I've mentioned it before, I mount this upside down is because if I've had it before, you probably have with micro, sometimes if you have a particularly hard crash, the IPEX connector can pop off. This makes it so you don't have to take the canopy off. You can get to it straight from one of these Guitarpick shaped cutouts here. You can get straight to the IPEX, so make sure it's popped back on and re-add hot glue if that's your thing. You can also check that the connectors are seated properly for the VTX. Just check they're pushed in, so it's nice and easy access that way round. And with the gap under there, obviously there's plenty of airflow getting to things, so I'm not worried about overheating. So the next thing I'm going to do is I've got my pre-sized spacers here. Now the nice thing with TPU as well is that it squashes a bit, which is obviously good, but because of the way it's printed, it has a grain to it, so it has horizontal lines because of the way the orientation in which this was printed. So these will actually screw on like bolts would. So it's kind of cool. You can just spin them down into place. So I'm going to do that with these. Probably loose. You can press them as well. Okay, so that is the VTX in place. The next thing to do, or the next board I'm then going to put into the stack, will be the Caddx board here, and that comes pre-wired. You've got this 2-wire plug here. That's for the control little mini joystick that comes with it, so that you can change the settings on the Caddx to your preference. The other thing I've done here, just because I like to keep the stack as close and tight and as low profile as possible with minimum gaps, just because this is a giant metal shield that goes over the SD card. It's also, you know, if that's to press down on any of the components of the board here, like earth any of these resistors out, you're going to have bad things happen. So it's a good idea just to put a piece of either a bit of clear tape or electrical tape over there. I've used some just clear packing tape because it's skinnier as well. The electrical tape is a little bit thicker, so that's why I've used that. But or you can conformal coat, whatever you prefer. Really, you can decide. And you can see that is now. You can see there is, maybe you can see that there is a tiny gap between the shield and the resistors, but it's just a bit of insurance to have that tape in there. But you can see everything's nice and level and low profile. So that is the Cadex board in place in the orientation I want. Leave that camera to the side for the minute. So now I'm going to put on some more TPU spacers. And these TPU spacers I've cut down to the sizes that I want to achieve the gap that I want between the boards, which I think is a much nicer option than just using spare nuts to create your spaces, because obviously you might end up with either something too shallow or too large a gap, and obviously you don't want the camera sitting miles too high. So this allows you to customize the height precisely to where you want it. That is now down and secure. The next thing we're going to look at is the flight controller. You can see how much nicer that looks because you've got the color theme going through the stack as well, just from an aesthetic point of view. Just looks nicer. Okay, so let me just move this to one side. So let's talk about the board I'm putting in. So for this build, obviously in my standard definition build here, I've used that Betaflight board. This is by far my preferred flight controller, and I would put it in that one. But I did say we also support the Crazy BF4 V3, which this one is. So I thought let's do a build with this in as well, so that you can see, as well as the Beta FPV or the nameless boards, the other one that they're the ones that work the best. The way I'm going to put this in is so that it is not the normal way up. I've never liked having the battery plug-in at the bottom on these, and I always find that, you know, with a lot of these, especially some of the pre-built ones, you tend to find that this will even dig into the battery. Either way, it's just a pain to have it there. So what I'm going to do in the configuration, we'll actually flip this so that the board will be have an orientation with the USB face up. And if I just bring the stack back here, just to show you, just move the camera a little bit, I'm going to place this here. That will go like so in the stack with the board face up, and when our camera pod goes on top, you'll end up with the USB sitting at the front here. Sorry, it's a bit of an angle, it a bit more like that. There you go. So that it's all well protected. Obviously if it lands upside down, it'll hit the top of the canopy. This is nicely protected here, but then it's dead easy just to plonk your USB straight in the top, which I think is really nice. And then I've also desoldered the plugs on this. I don't want to use plugs. I'm going to be using these guys, which are the RCM Power 5000 kV 1204s. Very excited to try those out. I heard lots of good things about these. So those are going to go in there. I'm going to be building this to a 3-inch setup. It'll be 3-inch or maybe 2.5-inch tri-blades, just for something a little bit smoother. Bi-blades can be a little bit prop wash. Well, not prop washy, sorry. What I'm saying is they tend to be a little harder to tune for jello. They can be more problematic than a smooth running tri-blade will, and as this is an HD build, it might just be better on a 2.5 tri-blade as opposed to that. But we'll initially start with the bi-blades and see how we get on. You can see with that removed, there are your motor solder points there. I can either solder to the top or to the underside. It will make life a lot easier if I just solder them straight on the top, the motor wires, so that's fine. And then in terms of wiring of this guy, I am going to run an XM Plus in here because I've got this lovely HD build, and I'm not going to, you know, risk it by using these frankly terrible solder on receivers that are in the built-in receiver. The SPI receiver is just rubbish. I've never had any luck with these built-in boards having a range more than about 30 meters before they start crapping out. So I mean, some of them are okay, but it's so hit and miss. I'd rather not risk it, to be honest with you. An XM Plus is far more reliable, got diversity reception, makes for a much more reliable setup. So I'm going to desolder this, and then you see I've already pre-loomed all of this, or pre-wired it rather. I'll tidy the wires up once stuff's plugged in. But the way we have this wired, let me just quickly run through this board. You have here the video in, yellow wire, video out is the blue wire, plus 5 volts and the minus are all at the front here on this Crazy Bee board. That is going to that will go to the plug on the VTX, on the Diamond VTX. TX1 is here, that is our smart audio. And then the other 3 wires we have here, I'm taking another plus 5 volts from the Buzzer Plus, because that's another place you can tap 5 volts from. The ground I've taken over here from the main battery out ground, because that was easy to solder onto. And then I also have here, so this is the RX2, I think. RX2 or sorry, TX2. No, RX2. And this is the one that's inverted, for which you use for S bus. I believe it's labelled that way on the manual. So those 3 will go to my XM Plus, like so, and then it goes to our Diamond VTX. So the next thing I'm going to use is some rubber grommets just to lay this down into place. I'm not sure if the Crazy Bee comes with them this size. I think it might come with the longer ones, but the longer ones, it's just one side that's got a longer length of rubber, so you just snip it and it will make it down to this. Okay, so I've got the wires kind of routed the way I want them. Grommets on. Carefully down now. So hopefully down one side now. Good, and the board can move in the grommets, which is nice. There's no pressure from anything. The worst thing to do is if you don't carefully put the wires in the right place, especially on the underside of that board where that big chip was. Anywhere where the board's raised when you're trying to get stuff nice and low profile like this, you just have to make sure you don't cross and bunch up wires, because otherwise that will actually defeat the point of having these rubber grommets in there, because you won't be able to move the stack around at all, and it needs to have a little bit of dampening in there to absorb some vibration. One of the nice things about having that Diamond VTX is you've got so much room under there for any wire bundles. Okay, that's looking a bit neater now. So we have our boards plugged up. We've got this little one at the side here for the programming, but we'll get onto all that a fair bit later on. And of course, one of the features of the frame here is that you can have up to 3 screws here to secure. Whether you mount in that one, you get these 3, and if you mount in the 3-inch position, you get these 3. I just tend to use 2. I don't really bother with the 3rd, but you know, it's an option should you want it. So with these laid flat, what I'm going to do is what I did on the other one, which is to use some tape, cloth tape. Here, looks like this. And this works really well. It's adhesive stuff. It sticks to itself really well. I've used it on my other builds and it's been brilliant. Just stays in place, does a nice job. It's easy to remove. So yeah, there's no point. I don't see the point in with something like this down at this size. Going with heat shrink's a bit of a waste of time, I think. So I stretch this stuff a little bit. Go over. Press. Yeah, there you go. Neatly done. No mess and very quick to work with. So yeah, highly recommend that stuff. So now I can cut this to length. And the nice thing is, if at any point, if I decide I want to move this in, because the other thing I should mention, if you ever do break the end off the arm, and you decide the quick fix, obviously, you could switch to 2.5-inch props and you can just move into the next motor position, which is quite a cool thing. But if you ever decide to do that, leave yourself enough motor wire. If you're on 2.5 and want to go out to 3, if you've got motors that will suit both types of prop size, 2.5 and 3-inch prop, leave yourself enough motor wire. So the last thing you want to do is build to 2.5, have that all wired up perfectly, and then find actually I want to try out 3-inch props and find you haven't got the motor wire length to come out to the outer holes. So yeah, that's just something to bear in mind when you're building these. So there we go, that's the first motor wired in. I won't bore you with the other 3, I'll just do those and then we'll come back to it. But as you can see, it is very tiny, it is finicky, you need to be pretty decently experienced at soldering. Make sure you use a really fine tip when working down at this level. You can order that tip for the TS100, I think that's one of the options you can get when you order it. So well worth doing, but take your time, and then of course just check with a multimeter, or inspect it well under a magnifying glass to make sure that you haven't accidentally joined anything together. But yeah, as you can see, this looks good, it's all nice and neat. That is the first motor done. So yeah, as I said, with the Crazy Bee board you can just use motors with plugs and go straight in, but this is a much nicer, neater build. And hey, it shed a gram or 2 grams, maybe probably a gram, from the plastic motor plugs that we've taken off and pins. So yeah, a little bit of weight saving there too. Okay, let's do the others. That's the rest of the wiring done. You can see it is quite tiny and fiddly, as I mentioned, but I think the result was well worth it. That looks really very, very cool and neat, and the kind of build quality I like when I'm working on these things. And really it's not just being OCD, it's really more the fact that I want stuff to be very reliable when it's in the air. I want it to survive crashes, and I've always said it, if you do things properly the first time, then you're pretty much good. You don't have to worry about it being a problem again. So yeah, there we go, that's done. I've also now wired in this XM Plus receiver with those 3 wires I showed you on the that I've taken off of the board, off of the Crazy Bee board on the underside. So you can see the gaps are there. Everything is as close and low profile as I dare, just to try and keep this thing so it doesn't get too tall. Flight controller is at the top of the stack, not a problem at all for flight performance. I should say I've run with that configuration on the other one, it flies beautifully. If anything, it's actually then in line with the prop line. If I pop that on there, you can see we are dead level with the prop line, so that works absolutely fine. So the last thing that we need to do is a few things we need to do. We need to get that camera on and into the top pod. I'm also going to run that through and into the top pod. That's the 5.8 video dipole antenna. And then you can see I've routed the XM wires through these little sort of mini pick shapes down here, and then this will go to under here, and I'm going to mount that at 90 degrees, much as I have on my other model as well. Also have to feed a battery strap through there, but I won't worry about that right now. So the next job is to get this into the pod. So that's a simple job. We're just going to put 2 screws in. Now the nice thing, you can actually reverse in software which way up you mount the camera. So if it so suits your build that you want the wires coming out the top, you can, or if out the bottom, it doesn't matter. You can flip that, and the OSD flips with it as well. That can be done in the settings. But I'm going to have it in this way up. So that is going to go into the top pod, and as I mentioned before, you can either buy these top pods in the colour of your choice directly from the Halo website, or if you want, you can also download for free the files and print it yourself if you're a 3D printer like I am. That's also an option. So now comes the tricky job of spotting where the hole is. And the other nice thing about this pod, you have crazy up tilt if you want it. If you're a racer, or some freestylers that do a lot of the backwards crazy maneuvers like to have mega up tilt. You can see that's that's pretty insane if you want it. I tend to run 45, sometimes a little over. So somewhere about there, I think, maybe a little bit down from that. Tends to be where I like to run the camera. So that is all nicely done and in place. Tighten that up a little bit more. And the nice thing about TPU, you tend to find screws won't work their way out of TPU the way they will out of a brittle plastic that some manufacturers choose to go with. So last thing there is just to get this antenna and route this up and under like so. Okay. This will actually fit over these smaller gummies, and it will also fit over the beta FPV gummies. There you go, you can see it actually goes down and rests on them like that, so it's actually capturing them. It's kept the dipole up and out the way, and we've got the Caddx wires coming out and around the side here. They're absolutely fine in terms of prop clearance. I should probably point out, again, that was something that I was very avid about, making sure was in the design that there was a decent distance with the prop to the body, so you'd never have to worry about wires wrapped round edges moving from one place up to the next. So that's that. So it is starting to look like a quad. I just need to secure the these antennas, and also secure this as well, this main power wire. So I'm probably going to, again, because I've got those small holes down in here, maybe pass a zip tie through there just to hold this down to make sure that doesn't move around. But we have managed to get that all into a pretty tidy looking little HD build. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. This wire will tuck back in when we're not using it, once we're done programming the Caddx, so that's fine. I'll be able to tuck that away back in under here, no problem. I'll just tuck it out of the way for now. Plenty of room under there for moving cables up well out the way. So yeah, that's all looking pretty good. So next thing to do, I'm just going to put the 4 nuts on there, just some plastic nuts just to hold this down. Get that done. This only needs to be finger tight really, you don't need to go too mad. So I think we are pretty much there. That is about ready for some programming in and configuring in Betaflight. And yeah, I think there's, other than adding a battery strap and just securing these antennas, that is pretty much our build done. So we have a 3S 1204 5000 kV HD Guitarpick. Really looking forward to that, and I'm just pleased with the way that's all turned out and looks. Really happy. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we have the nice ability to be able to plug the USB cable straight in the top there for programming and level calibrating the accelerometer and all that good stuff. It just works really nicely. Yeah, it's all pretty good. So what last thing we should do, let's just take a quick weight and see where we are. Let me just move my keyboard out of the way a little bit. So this should give us an idea of where we are. So who wants to make some guesses before I drop this on? So it's got the HD in there. We'll see how much heavier this gets. So 59 grams to that point. Excellent. That's not too bad at all. Let's add some props into the mix there. So we're going to be putting a couple of those 3-inch props on. Takes us to 62. We also need to add a battery strap, which hasn't really done. Oh, it's added a gram. And then I guess the last thing to do will be to add our, let's see, we got this Nanotech 450 milliamp 3S, so we'll drop that into the equation too. Oh, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Not too bad at all for an HD build. That's actually pretty much coming to the same weight as the my non-HD version, but then the non-HD version has the slightly heavier flight controller on it, the 25 amp one, which is, as I mentioned before, is way overkill. So yeah, I'm very, very pleased with that, especially as these you know, these are decently powerful motors, these 1204 5000 kV RCM powers. So yeah, I think we're oh, I've added a gram. Nope, it's back. 102. Yeah, what a result. So there's the build. I think we're done with that for now. Oh, there's probably the prop bolts as well. So yeah, maybe it will be 103, 104 by the time it's all up. But other than that, that is everything that needs to go onto this. And fresh off the print bed, we have the NJ Tech custom canopy for the Guitarpick. So this is in its second revision, and this is just the most amazing work by Bloods here. I gave him a criteria, the things I want. I wanted a nice aero canopy and a dipole antenna holder. This is on my standard definition version of the Guitarpick, and he has just smashed it out of the park. I absolutely love this. It just looks so cool, functional, and it's got the form as well to look really, really just special and a bit different. Really loving that. So there is the Guitarpick. Now interestingly, let's do a weight comparison, because we know the weight of the other one. Let's wait for the scales to 0. If we put this on, 62 grams, battery, strap, 103, exactly the same weight with my SD version, using the much higher amp draw components. So yeah, this is a much more robust but slightly heavier board on here, but still that's the target weight I was after in the first place for this build. But we have managed to achieve it with this guy pretty much. With pretty much identical weight, and this is the HD version. So if you go with the lighter components of the Crazy BF4 and do the build like this and balance things out, you can end up with an HD build that is coming in pretty much the same. As I said, this needs motor bolts on it, so about 103 grams, I guess, maybe 104. It's pretty much the same weight. So we have the two versions now. Let's move the scales out of the way. We've got the standard definition one and the HD one. There they are, side by side. And yeah, you can kind of pick which way you want to build the Guitarpick, but I will obviously be getting lots of flight footage of the two of them, so you can see how they both look. It's not massively taller than the build on the right. The HD one is a 3 stack, so you can see it is a little bit taller, but yeah, there's not that much in it really. But I think they both look pretty tidy, if I do say so myself. So there we go, guys. There is the Guitarpick HD. That's the most challenging of the builds, I think, compared to just building the standard one out. But hopefully you have a guide there to at least know what you're doing when you're building the one that you have ordered. Thank you very much to everyone that helped sell out batch 1 of the pre-orders. Those will be here very soon, so we can start shipping them out to you. We have managed to get batch 2 secured to arrive before Chinese New Year, which is great news. We managed to get in there, and that's really because you sold out batch 1 so damn fast. It was pretty much a day and a half, and they were all gone. So yeah, the second batch is ordered, and it will be arriving. And we're taking pre-orders for that on the website that's linked in the description if you want to get in on that second batch of pre-orders. So yeah, now I shall just be praying for the good weather so I can get out and give you some flight footage of both this HD one and of course the standard one with the onboard DVR. I hope you enjoy that. By the way, if you want this pod, this is almost ready to go. I think it's absolutely perfect the way it is, but knowing Bloods, there might be a few things he'll want to tweak about it. But we will be selling this as a special edition Canopy. There'll be my custom Canopy here, and there will also be a Bloods edition which will be geared towards racing, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what his one looks like. I imagine probably drastically different to mine. But I hope you've enjoyed that, guys. Do leave a comment and a like, and continue to subscribe. I will see you all very soon.